Thanks for watching Film Buff, really, honestly. It's fucking great.
Hello, how's it going, guys? My name is Im, Film Buff. Alright, man. It's finally time for Season 2. It took me a long time to get through Season 1, but that's done. You know, I've done the two specials. Super happy that I did those. Really enjoyable stuff, entertaining stuff. I know there's been a lot of hype for Season 2, and like even, you know, throughout my Season 1 run, I saw that a lot of people really wanted Season 2, you know, they wanted me to get to that, so here it is, finally there. And I know I'm going to be cutting it close, but my plan is to be caught up in time for Season 3, for the premiere. So that means that hopefully these, you know, these next 12 episodes are going to come out in record time. I mean, they really have to if I want to catch up. But that is my goal. My goal is to get, you know, caught up in time. Alright, so I need to thank all the missing patrons before I go any further. But yeah, you know, thank you so much for sticking around, for being patrons. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the support. And I hope you're enjoying all the early access stuff and the full length. And a reminder, please check out the pinned comment. You know, it's the first comment. It's pinned, so, you know, that's what it means. It's pinned, it's going to stay at the top. And that basically tells you the releases that are already out on Patreon. Alright, just a really quick recap, I guess, right at the ending. I mean, let's just go right to the last part, you know, the post-credit scene. Titan in the wall, right? That was a big shocker. That's how, you know, they left, it was a cliffhanger, right? So that's how they left it off. Now let's see how all of this plays out. Excited to get started, man. Let's get right into it. Oh, shit. Dude, Hanji's gonna flip. Nope. Yeah. Explain. He knew. He knew it's in there. I saw this side of her in that special. God damn, this guy's crazy. She always does that. She does like the switch. Oh. So that guy had some new. Connie. Mr. B? They showed a quick shot of this.
何言ってんだサシャ。ここに巨人がいるって言いたいんなら、そりゃウォールローゼが突破されたってことだぞ。
ミケ。
Mike.
パイアウマを出せ。お前を含めて4機。
That's the guy, Thomas.
各区に伝えろ。おそらく104機調査兵団の中に巨人はいなかった。あの巨人たちが林まで到達したら、
Oh, that's the shot I saw
それまでに
from the finale.
そのあたりの地形は知ってます。あとコニーも。
Oh my god, he's rattled, man.
南に俺の村があります。巨人が来た方向に近くの村を案内できます。その後俺の村に行かせてください。
Oh no, this is gonna be bad, man.
南藩の案内はお前に任せたぞ。
You don't want to go there, Connie.
コニー、俺も行く。
多分南は一番危険だ。巨人がいっぱいいる。
何言ってんだ。さっき抜け出しに加担すると言っただろ。
Man, gotta love Reiner. He
どう
is.
するベルトルト。
Okay, I'm gonna try Bertolt though. Bertolt.
僕も行くよ。なぜだ巨人が一斉に。
早い。追いつ
Holy fuck.
やるが南藩はお前に任せた。ミケさん了解。
ミケ分隊長がおとりになったの。
一人じゃ無理だ。俺もダメだ。こっちも人数が必要だ。
No.
信じろ。調査兵団でリヴァイ兵長に次ぐ実力者だ。
Come on, Mike. Come on. Don't kill him off. Come on. It's like different compartments.
エレン、どんなに相手が悪くて憎たらしくてもね、突っかかりゃいいってもんじゃないんだよ。あんたは男だろ。たまにはこらえてミカサを守ってみせな。
それもうボロボロだな。今度支給品に新しいのあったらもらっといてやるよ。
ったく休ませてくれねえな巨人ども。
Yes.
いけるか。
行くしかないだろ
104機の監視にミケ分隊長が当たったのは正解でしたね。どうにか持ちこたえられるかと。
ああ。だといいが。
Come on, come on, come on, Mike.
ただ気がかりなのはあの気候種。何か妙だ。17メートル以上あるのか。でかい獣のような体毛で覆われている巨人だ。
Holy shit.
初めて見る。こちらに近づくでもなく、ああやって歩き回ってるあたり、気候種に違いないのだろうが。狙ったそんなまさか。
Oh. Oh my god. Fuck.
俺今待てって言ったろう。
Ymir? Is that Ymir?
その武器は何て言うんですか。腰につけた飛び回るやつ。
This is so. Please don't kill him.
同じ言語のはずなんだが、怯えてそれどころじゃないのか。つうか剣とか使ってんのか。やっぱうなじにいるってことは知ってんだね。まあいいや、持って帰れば。
Yo. Never seen Mike like this, man. No, 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 Mike, stop. Stop.
続ける限りは
Dude, stop.
まだ負けてない。もう動いていいよ。喋れるじゃん。しかし面白いこと考えるな。
Fuck. Dude, talk about intelligent Titan. Mike though, man. Alright. So, episode 1, season 2. Finally, the much anticipated season 2. It's taken a long time, but I'm finally here. And yeah, this first episode did not disappoint. Oh my god, this first episode was quite intense actually. Actually so intense that I just saw one of the best soldiers, second only to Levi apparently in capabilities and skill. I just saw him get absolutely butchered. Absolutely just, oh my god, that was so graphic. That might have been the most graphic death of the show so far. Graphic for a major character. Now I've seen others die, but this is a major character, man. This is Mike. I'm sad to see him go, man. I actually did like Mike. Mike, this cool as ice, composed soldier, one of the best. Second only to Levi. I just saw him reduced to this scared shitless dead man. And you can see how terrified he was, man. These Titans are just beyond terrifying. One of them is a bit of a standout here. Holy shit, man. This Sasquatch ape-looking Titan, man. Holy shit. Oh, man, this new Titan is, again, a game changer, man. This, I'll get into it. There's a lot to talk about here, man. I'll get into this new Sasquatch Titan. I just checked out the title, and the title is Beast Titan. So, I mean, it's quite clear that's meant to be this Sasquatch Titan, right? So much to talk about, man. Let's talk about this ending. Actually, let's talk about the transition. But that transition from him getting ripped apart into this ending. Oh my god, that was so unsettling, man. Because, there's this happy music playing, right, throughout this ending. But the ending itself is showing me this really creepy imagery, a lot of creepy stuff. Creepy, yet really interesting stuff. So much so that I actually did like a shot by shot. Like, a few things really caught my eye. So I'm like, okay, this, I'm seeing something here. They're showing me something really interesting here. So I kind of, did like a shot by shot. I'll come back to at the end of the discussion. But yeah, man, a lot of really creepy imagery. And the song that's playing, it's like a really happy tone, and clearly that's by design. They're showing you this really insane stuff going on, in this imagery, yet they're playing this song on top of it that's kind of uplifting and happy, but yeah, I mean, there's actually some really interesting things going on in that ending. And, they don't just randomly put those things there, right? I actually feel like I got some answers out of that. Again, I'll share my thoughts. Before I even go to the top, there's one thing that simply has to be talked about here. The Sasquatch Titan, man, the Beast Titan, according to the title. But yeah, calling it an abnormal is an understatement. This is like beyond abnormal. This is something new, man. This is something new because it's just so strange, man. The proportions are all off. The arms are super long. It's got like a tiny head. And the fur, of course, it's absolutely covered in fur. And those unforgettable, piercing yellow eyes, man. Just like shooting daggers at me. I don't know, man. This is like this legendary Grandmaster Sasquatch Titan. Just really strange, man. Really strange. And you know what makes him even creepier, to me at least? Is the fact that he's so calm, so calm, and like the voice is so soothing, and just the manner of speaking, because the first time I saw him, I had no clue that this Titan's about to speak. Again, that's another thing, this one spoke. Now that's not something new, because I just saw that in Ilse's notebook. Actually, there is a big difference, because the Titan in Ilse's notebook could barely speak. It could only string together a few things. Ymir-sama and person of Ymir, right? But this Titan has a full grasp on the language. It could clearly speak and quite comfortably, right? So, yeah, just the fact that he has this calm, soothing demeanor, that just made it so much more creepier, man. Because, it makes you think it's like a gentle giant. But, that's not true at all, because I saw him, like, kill a horse and toss the horse at Mike. And then at the end, he had no problem, calling the smaller Titans on Mike. You can move now. Again, that's the other thing. It clearly has control, and authority over some of these smaller Titans. All of them stayed in position until this Titan told him, it's okay now. Except the one, he listened at first, the one that was trying to munch on Mika's legs. It made me so angry. It stopped at first, but then it starts munching on his legs again, and the Titan's like, whoa, I told you to stop, didn't I? Just simply crushes the head, right? Now, is this a Titan that broke through Rose? That was the big thing, right? This episode that, it's been breached. Rose has been breached. And the Titans have gone through. So, is this a Titan that broke through and brought these other Titans? At one point I legit thought that is this Ymir? But then I remembered that the Titan remembered Ilse, recognized Ilse, a human, as Ymir, right? A person of Ymir. So that kind of scratched out almost instantly, because Ilse is a female, but this Titan doesn't really look much like a female, does it? So I scratched that really quick. This seems to be someone or something completely new, and I also say something because there a few things happen here that made me think, okay, maybe this isn't a human operated Titan. There's conflicting thoughts here because it's doing things that's making me think that it might not be a human operated Titan. And then it's doing things that makes it clear that it might be a human operated Titan. Alright, so in terms of my thought of it not being a human operated Titan, that comes from the fact that it does not know the ODM gear. It just doesn't know the ins and outs of it. Like, it doesn't know what this is. And he's asking Mike about it. It's actually quite interested in this this equipment that's being used. And it found out then and there that they're using swords, and it said, you must know about us residing in the Nape. That makes me, kind of go back and forth again. Now, does it mean that as, in general, it just knows that the human operators are in the Nape? Or it's just saying, just as a whole, the Titan Collective, they reside in the Nape. There's two types of Titans. There's the human operators, right? Annie, Eren, the Armored Titan, and the Colossal. And then there's these Titans. You know, some of the brainless killing machines. You know, but those Titans are, well, they used to be humans, right? They used to be humans at one point, and now they're in this Titan form. You know, going back to Ilsa's notebook, that Titan most definitely, you know, seemed like that's a human trapped in there. Well, not trapped in there because it kind of became the Titan, right? But it felt trapped in there. That's the feeling I got throughout that that scene. You know, is this just like a Titan, no human operator? Is this some kind of old school, ancient Titan that just kind of entered the game? You know, I'm not sure how it just showed up. You know, and it not knowing about the ODM gear really, you know, kind of makes you think of that possibility, that it's just like this ancient Titan that does not have a human operator, that can kind of, you know, switch back and forth. And you know, another thing it said is, you know, it's trying to speak, and of course Mika is just absolutely rattled, so you know he can't really talk back. He's not in a state to have a conversation right now. But at one point it gets a little bit confused. It's like, I think both of us speak the same language, right? It's like scratching its ear, you know. So I feel like a human's not going to specify that, you know, about the language. It's just gonna, you know, it's just assume that they speak the same language. You know, since Mika's not talking back, this Titan kind of gets confused a little bit, and he thinks, oh, I'm pretty sure, you know, both of us speak the same language. You know, it's either that or it is a human operator that can switch in and out, but this is a human that has been isolated. You know, it's questioning the ODM gear. He's trying to figure out what the hell this thing is. So much so that he, you know, ends up taking it. I guess he's gonna go study. It, right? But yeah, you know, it feels like this Titan has been isolated for a long time, or it's possible that it is someone, like a human operator that's just out of the loop. Maybe it's from a secluded area, you know, within the walls, and it just didn't know about the ODM gear or anything to do with the military and the scouts or any of that stuff. It's possible. So yeah, you know, I'm kind of jumping back and forth here. You know, is it a human operated Titan? Is this an actual Titan that doesn't have a human operator? And it's been isolated for a long time, and now it's kind of, you know, come out to play. And, you know, he's learning about these things, you know, the ODM gear and stuff. Again, you know, it totally could be that it's just, this is the look. You know, the Armored has a look, the Colossal has a look. Annie and Eren, they both have a look, you know, once it turned into a Titan. Maybe this just happens to be the look. You know, it's just this big ape, you know, Sasquatch Titan. You know, perhaps it took some features of the person that's inside. But what kind of human looks like that? Because, you know, it doesn't completely take your features. You know, the Titan body doesn't completely take your features, but you could tell it takes some things, like Annie. Annie's Titan, it looked like Annie, right? But yeah, it tries to speak to Mike, but Mike is a bit too petrified at this moment to even, you know, reply back. So it just decides he's gonna take the gear, the ODM gear. And then, you know, there's that moment Mike finds this inner strength, you know, kind of like the final stand. You know, he probably knew he's gonna die, because how do you get out of that situation, right? He's smart enough to know that he's basically a dead man at this point, but, you know, he decided then and there that he's gonna fight right till the end. Part of me kind of felt like maybe if Mika just keeps his head down, he doesn't, you know, do anything crazy, maybe this Titan's gonna let him go. But, you know, it kind of became clear that he was gonna kill Mika. You know, and if he didn't give the orders, I think the small Titans would have taken him out, you know, regardless. But that's the thing, right? It gave the orders. It's like, now you can move. And the moment it said that, you know, they ripped Mika apart. Okay, man, so let's go to the beginning, to the top. Actually, before that, you know, there was this, I guess it was kind of like a recap, you know, to get the juices flowing again. So in the beginning, there's this animation. It's kind of like a recap, but, you know, they use this book, the animation of a book opening up. So that kind of really gives it this, the history books, that kind of feel, right? Like this historic stories being told. And, you know, it's giving me some of the major points from season 1. But, you know, the one thing that really caught my eye again is, I think is one of the last shots of, you know, this recap type scene. So there's this huge gathering, big crowd, and they're listening to these hooded figures, right? All of them are, hooded except the one. He's kind of, addressing the crowd, preaching to the choir, the masses. Basically, this episode made it really clear that the religious aspect is going to be something major in this season, because throughout this episode, there's so much religious stuff going on, I mean, that beginning, the scene I'm talking about, then Pastor Nick gets a lot of screen time, I'll get to that in a bit. Then the ending is actually completely religious. The whole, it has this old school, like European tapestry art type thing going on. A lot of the things being shown in that ending are, reminiscent of religious things. It's really alluding to things like pilgrimage, gods and goddesses, and sacrifice and cannibalism. Yeah, in my first initial take, I'm just kind of trying to take it in, but it piqued my interest, so I had to go back and do like a shot by shot, and I took notes, man. So excited to get to that, but hold tight, we'll get to that in a bit. But the religious aspect seems to be a big deal. It's been established in this first episode that it's gonna play a major part. But let's get into the episode itself. It jumped right back in. It picks up exactly at the ending of season 1, episode 25, puts you right back into it. No time jumps. It maintains that peak. So I really like that. That kept it exciting. It didn't have that new season build up, right? A lot of times in shows, in a new season, it kind of builds up again. But this maintains that peak and just kind of goes exactly at the same pace. That post-credit scene from episode 25, it picks up at that point, and basically Hanji and the rest of these scouts, they see it. They see the hole and they see the Titan inside the wall. So there's no possibility of keeping it a secret. It's right in the open, and that information is out there now. That it's not something they can control anymore in terms of who gets to know about this or who sees it. It's in the open now. Open as in at least the scouts knowing. I'm sure they've been told to keep it, on the DL. Don't be telling civilians. Don't be telling your families. I immediately got an answer for a question I had after the finale. Is this thing alive? Is it in some state of hibernation? It is most definitely alive. The eyeball shifts a little bit. That's a scary prospect because, at this point, I don't know if these Titans made a choice to be in there, if they were forced to be in there, if they were banished in there. So Hanji, who's basically like just stunned looking at this, she starts questioning the possibilities. She's like, is this a coincidence that this one just showed up at that, at that spot? Or does this mean that it's full of them? And that's one of the major talking points I had in the finale. The possibility of the walls being full of them. And just the thought of that, it's still so insane. So who shows up? Pastor Nick. And then this guy looks like he just ran a marathon. He booked it, tried to get to Hanji as quick as possible. Look in his face. He's petrified, man. He's scared shitless. And, that kind of tells me, and he told her straight up that you simply cannot allow sunlight. You can't allow this Titan to get any sunlight. And that makes it really clear that this, if this thing gets out, it's going to be a really bad situation. A really bad situation. If Pastor Nick is petrified, I'm sure it's pretty fucked up if it gets out. And he knew. And the extension to him, the church. And in the season 1 finale, I kind of got to that conclusion that, there's more than meets the eye. I mentioned the church knowing much more than anyone else. And like just this, underground Illuminati type shit going on. It all makes sense. I remember I kept talking about how, he's scared that the wall's gonna be altered or defiled or damaged. This is exactly the reason, right? They didn't want it to get damaged. Now it's out in the open. The secret's out, to the scouts at least, and in extension, Commander Smith. And the fact that he was terrified of sunlight hitting this Titan and it potentially getting out. It feels like that's exactly how it's going to be if it does get out. It's going to be hostile. Especially because who knows how long that Titan's been in there. It's got to be in there for decades, perhaps centuries, man. This, like, I'm telling you, this ending has really changed my perspective on things. So yeah, you know, this thing is from a different time. You know, it's from a different time. Now, you know, I don't think this Sasquatch Titan, the Beast Titan, I don't think it's quite that old, you know, but I do feel like it is much older than a lot of the Titans they've seen so far, or I've seen so far. You know, so there's this quick scene of Commander Smith. You know, these two soldiers thought it was, you know, unimaginable that there's Titans in there. To them, you know, it's like this insane thing, you know. But, you know, Commander Smith, as usual, quite cool, you know, quite collected. Didn't seem like he was too mind-blown about this, you know. I believe he said no one knew. There's only people who knew about this and people who didn't know about this. So, you know, it seems like he's not, like, that shocked about it. And, you know, going back to Pastor Nick and Hanji on top of the wall, you know, now it's been covered up. And, you know, at this point, he still has that shitty attitude, you know, like this elitist, shitty attitude, like, I'm better than you. And, you know, he's kind of looking down at Hanji. You know, he's of the mindset that she doesn't deserve my attention. You know, she doesn't deserve any answers. Like, you know, that attitude of I'm not going to answer to you. You know, she wasn't having any of this, and she puts him in his place real quick. She's like, I'll take you down, bro. But once again, his reaction is not something Hanji was probably expecting. You know, and this guy tells her, let me go. You know, let me fall. And he legitimately means it. You know, I believe it. I believe it because, you know, he's ready, like, arms out, and he's like, just let me go. So that's crazy, you know, that he is ready to die to protect this big secret, you know? And I believe he said, I'll fulfill my duty without fail. So, okay, so at this point there is a bit of a time jump, a flashback, you know, goes 12 hours earlier. Now this is showing me the 104th, you know, the isolated 104th, the rest of the 104th. And, you know, of course, you know, they didn't show up in the finale, and then they did give me that one, you know, quick shot of them on horseback. That's the only thing I got in the finale. They're out of their gear, civilian clothing, and they seem just bored. You know, all of them are just kind of hanging out. Connie and Sasha seem super bored, and then you know, I got my first glimpse of Reiner and Mr. B, Bertolt. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, you know, the interesting thing here is that Connie brings up the fact that his village is like really close by, you know, and that it sucks that he can't go, you know, after being this close. And he kind of jokingly said that, you know, maybe he'll sneak out at night, you know, just go say hi and then come back. But the interesting thing here is that, you know, Reiner showed immediate interest. So first of all, he's just a really nice person, a really nice friend. He's always there for his friends. I've seen this throughout the show so far. If he can help, he's always down to help, right? So he jumped at that chance, you know, instantly. He's like, if you're serious, I'll come. But the idea of sneaking out is another reason because, you know, Reiner, you know, he starts talking to Connie and Sasha, and he's talking about how it's a little strange that, you know, they're being held up in here. You know, they're separated from the gear. The clothing, it's civilian clothing, right? And then he looks out and he sees the rest of the scouts are in gear, you know, in uniform, and they're equipped. So yeah, it's quite clear that Reiner does not like this. He doesn't like the situation he's being put in here. You know, he doesn't like being isolated. He doesn't like the situation that, you know, his gear is taken away and like he's out of uniform. So yeah, you know, a bit more fuel to the fire in terms of Reiner potentially being the armored. But all of a sudden, news starts to break that Rose has been breached. You know, Mika picks it up. Sasha picks it up. But yeah, you know, the crazy part here is that it happened off screen. You know, they didn't show me this, the breach, you know, the breach of Rose. Because that's a pretty big fucking deal, man. If Rose is fallen, if it's been breached. And to not show me that, that's a bit surprising. Because if it's been breached, that means the Colossal showed up, right? To kick a hole into one of the gates, or kick in one of the gates. And my prime suspect for the armored is right here, you know? So who the hell is doing the kicking, and who the hell is doing like the breaking of the gates? And I don't know. This is kind of strange that this is happening off screen. But nonetheless, it's happened. But does this mean that another human operator is doing the breaking this time? Of course, I touched up on it a bit earlier. Is it this new Titan I saw in this episode? This big Sasquatch-looking guy. Could he be the one doing the breaking this time? Who else is going to be doing it, right? But I don't know if he's big enough for that, He looked massive. He looked quite big. But it's tough to say how large he is unless I see him standing next to the wall itself, I don't think he's quite as big as a Colossal. And the Colossal is massive. He's big enough to like kind of look over the wall. That's like the one shot that really sticks in my mind, right from episode 1, him just kind of peeking over. And in this commotion, in this new state of panic, Mike decides to dismiss the idea of any more sleepers, any more spies being in the 104th. Now, that is a really good thing for Reiner, if indeed he is armored. But unfortunately, these Titans are coming from the south. And you see how, you can see how rattled Akane is by, after getting this news. Unfortunately, I think nothing good is going to come out of this. If they go there, he might be in for a tragic reunion. Knowing this show, those kind of things happen a lot. So, but Reiner being the bro he is, he offered instantly to come. So I like that they're sticking together. I like that. The 104th, there is this bond, right? They do have a bond. They kind of came up together, trained together. Now they're out in this horrific situation together. So I like that. I like any time they, get to stick around. Stick together. But yeah, at one point that flashback scene kind of comes up, right? I have to really stop hyping up these flashback scenes because to me, I've seen a lot of stuff, in the past, a lot of movies, a lot of shows. A lot of these flashbacks are usually used to drop crucial information, right? Perhaps different information so your perspective changes on a situation. But it's interesting to see that he's always had this charge at them up front kind of approach, act first, think later. And his mom told him to, cut that out of his system. Of course that's not good for you. And, the funny thing is I've seen him act like that, a lot of times in the first season. So it seems like it's a bit of a bad habit he's had since early childhood, right? So in terms of who the human operator could be inside this new Titan, I had a quick moment and I thought, oh, is this Eren's dad? But no, like instantly I dismissed that because Eren's dad knows about the ODM gear. So it's not Eren's dad. So yeah, man, I'm hoping this season I kind of get to find out, about Eren's dad. He's been gone a long time, so it does kind of feel like this might be a totally new person, like a new character altogether. So, and that's only if it actually ends up being a human operator. I'm still not 100% sure if I'm going to say that's a human operated Titan or if that is an actual Titan, man. Again, conflicting thoughts because, they've given me information that kind of makes a case for both of those possibilities. So, not sure yet. But yeah, I've already talked about this, but seeing Mika go out like that is, oh my god, that's just insane, to see him in that situation, to see him like that, reduced to that, it's terrifying, man, because that's not a person they've set up as someone who's going to lose his shit or someone who's going to lose his cool that quick. But in this situation, man, oh my god. And that ending, holy shit, him just legitimately getting ripped apart. And those screams, oh. But yeah, man, again, that brings me back to the ending. But yeah, after the first time I saw it, it really caught my interest. There's a lot of really interesting things going on in there, so I had to check it out again. And I actually did like a shot by shot. I paused the screen to really take in this imagery, and I took notes. I'm gonna use them right now. Okay, let's get into it, man. So the opening shot, had like this devil type character and this lady, and I don't know. It really felt like first contact, right? And the lady had something in her hand. And I'm not sure if she's handing it to him or it's handing it to her. It really had that forbidden fruit feeling to it, right? And like first contact. That's the feeling I'm getting here. Now in the next shot, there seems to be a female Titan. I think this actually might be the same lady from the first shot, So I think it's like a progression. Perhaps she's used this gift that she's received, and now she's become a Titan, right? Above her, you can see thunder strikes. And, thunder is reminiscent of, this electrical surge that happens anytime the Colossal shows up, or Annie, or Eren, right? So this is, a bit of a connection there. And also the men that are trying to fight her, I was looking at the armor and the shields. Those shields seem familiar. To me, it kind of felt like these are Vikings. So, it's tough to date it, but again, I feel like this goes so far back. Then there's this quick shot of these bracelets, I think. They look like bracelets. Something you slip on your arm. And they have some kind of writing on them. I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's something important because they're showing it in the ending. Again, like I said earlier, nothing is just showing up here randomly. I think it's, they're showing me things for a reason here. This next one, man. This next one... this whole thing has like a religious feel to it. It feels like religious tapestry paintings. So this next one really brings in, the church aspect and like this religious cult type thing that's going on even now in the present time. Okay, so the shot itself, it's some sort of king, royalty for sure, and he's surrounded by, nuns and priests and huge religious influence, of course, and nothing out of the ordinary there. Kings and religion and like the influence of religion, it's not anything new. That's existed in literature and just in history in general. But then it gets really crazy. It pans down, 3 kids are taking part in a cannibalistic ritual, man. And I believe these are 3 girls. And I actually have a theory about these 3 girls. And it's quite exciting, actually, if I'm on the right track about this. The king is behind them. Well, these kids have like tears as they're trying to eat the flesh or the hearts. And the king is behind them. I guess he's trying to help them through it. He's there for support. It has a feeling of kind of like a coming of age type thing. I mean, though they seem kind of young. Now, the skeleton on the slab, it did not look human. Because if you look at the face, the whole skull and like the face area, it's much larger, right, than a normal human. And it had like almost kind of like, how Predator has like the dreads. It kind of had something going out of its head. I don't know. Is it possible that this is a Titan carcass and they're consuming flesh or hearts? Now, throughout history, the concept of eating your enemy's hearts, that is something I've heard of before. So is that the type of thing that's going on here right now? Like they defeated the Titans, or this one in particular, and now the king is getting his children to eat the hearts or the flesh. I'm going to assume those are the king or some kind of royalty, like his children. These kids are taking part in this cannibalistic ritual to gain the abilities of a Titan. Do they worship these Titans? Again, there's a really strong religious presence in there. Is this the cult of the wall? The cult that still exists. Pastor Nick and like that church, those people that kind of got crushed, the followers of this church, this cult. Could this be the early, makings of this cult? Now, the 3 girls, if indeed they are girls, I think they are. I think these 3 kids, they might be Rose, Maria, and Sina. I think this is like how the name came to be for the walls. It would make sense. I think it makes a lot of sense if these walls are named after these children, this king's children. That's my theory, at least. Makes sense. There's 3 of them. There's 3 walls. Put 2 and 2 together. Makes sense. Then again, there's some more writing. Can't really make it out. Doesn't look like much to me, but they're showing it, so it's got to mean something. Then there are Titans coming from the sea. Now, is this the first attack of the Titans coming from the sea? The first encounter. And the city seems to be European, is not prepared. They're not equipped to handle this. It's clear that it's a bit of a massacre. It's caught them by surprise. Though, there's a few shots and I saw the helmets. The helmets kind of look like samurai helmets. So the armor is throwing me off a bit. It does feel like it's like European cities, or this city in the shot. But yeah, it looked like a samurai helmet. So, I don't know. But I do think it's a European city. I'm just saying, the armor is a little bit different than I expected. And yeah, the next shot is like the Titans running riot through the city. They're just causing absolute mayhem, killing anyone on sight. But yeah, it kind of feels like this might be the first attack from the sea. Then there's a shot of this cornered crowd. The shot itself, in the front there's like this man lifting up a child. Now I'm not sure if he's trying to help the child escape or if he's trying to give up the child, or being offered up to the Titans. But yeah, they're cornered. The Titans are behind them, and they're kind of just stuck in a corner. But yeah, it's tough to say if he's trying to offer up the child or just trying to help him escape. Then there's another shot of the Titans feasting on humans, right? Again, running riot through the city, just killing anyone on sight. But in the background, there's this ominous, super tall Titan, like just in the background. And, that really reminded me of the Colossal Titan. Again, a lot of these things are happening. It's kind of like history repeating itself. That's the kind of, that's the feeling I'm getting here. That a lot of these things have happened in the past. Then it's just a shot of the Titans kind of just moving on. It feels like they've done their thing at this city. They're done, and now they're just kind of moving on to the next destination, perhaps next town. Ooh, this next shot though. See, this next shot is not a historic shot. It's not like a tapestry type painting. The next shot is actually a shot from the finale from season 1. And it's a quick one. It's a quick one. If it's one of those shots that you might miss if you don't pause each shot. But you still might catch it, but it's a quick one. It's a quick flash of the people in that church, the ones that got crushed in the finale. The arms interlinked, and that one lady, blonde, long hair. She was right in the middle of it, right? It's a quick shot of that. And then a quick flash of Pastor Nick. Again, it's a shot from that finale itself. But, Pastor Nick and these followers of the church, they kind of fit in to this whole ending, doesn't it? It kind of all goes together. So that to me means that, they're trying to allude to the fact that, look, this old school, like, historic presence is still around in the form of this church. And that's, at least that's a connection I'm going to make here. And kind of like keeping traditions alive, that kind of thing, right? For me, at least, that's a feeling I'm getting here. But the fact that they showed him, those followers and Pastor Nick, I think that's a big deal. And next up is the shot of like a mass exodus, right? It's the people displaced from their homes, and almost kind of feels like a pilgrimage to these monolithic walls, they've heard about. Another quick shot from the show itself, from season 1, it's just like a quick shot of the fields. In episode 1, I believe, they, Aaron's dreaming and Mikasa kind of, she's above him. But then, just the shot of the fields. And the next shot, it's kind of like, it's like a sunrise. It's showing you the sunrise. And as this is happening, the Titans are kind of, getting up because of it. The sun, the sunlight, and the whole concept of Titans needing the sunlight. And the animation is legitimately showing me them coming out of the ground. Again, that might just be an animation choice and, a bit of a metaphor of like the Titans being of the earth. But yeah, it's alluding to the fact that sunlight is how the Titans kind of get going. Again, one of the most interesting shots of this ending is the final shot. Almost kind of like a hierarchy of authority. So right at the bottom, it's humans. You can see just by, the size difference, it's humans. Then some Titans, right? And then above them are even bigger Titans. The bottom of the totem pole, I guess. It's all male-looking Titans. I guess I can equate the bottom layer to just the normal Titans, just the really crazy ones, that just the killing machines, the brainless killing machine. The ones above them, 2 males and a female. The bigger, the ones that are a bit bigger than these Titans. I suppose those ones could be, or like similar to the intelligent Titans, the human operated Titans. And above them, at the highest level of this, there seems to be some type of goddess. Now, is this the same lady from that first shot, that first contact type shot they had, the devil and this lady, and everyone else is kind of bowing down to her, or at least on one knee. But another interesting thing here is that there's an X, right through her. Does that mean that this person is long gone? They've been defeated, they're dead? Or is it trying to say that this person must be killed? The leader must be killed, the queen, the goddess. A lot of really interesting stuff in there. See, all of this is just speculation. This is my take, my interpretation of the things being shown in this ending. Another thing I noticed here is that a lot of threes, going on. These right below the goddess, the two male Titans and a female Titan, the 3 girls eating the hearts. I believe I believe they're showing me Maria, Rose, and Sina. Armin, Mikasa, Eren, that's 3 of them. 2 males and a female. Farlan, Isabel, Levi, 2 males and a female. And another one comes to mind, but like, in a lot of scenes in season 1, I saw these 3 together. But not as much as the others. It's not... The ones I'm thinking of here are Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie. They appeared together a few times in the scenes. So, a lot of 3s going on, man. Okay, so if you enjoyed it, please smash that thumbs up. Leave your comments. Let me know what you guys thought. A huge thank you to all the amazing patrons. Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being a patron. First of all, I'm not really the ideal YouTuber, and I know that. I don't have schedules, and, my releases are really... They come out really randomly. So, the fact that you're patrons and you still stick around, much respect. I really do appreciate it. You guys are brilliant. And I hope you're enjoying the early access once it comes out. The full length. I'm super happy I can put that up for you guys. But yeah, once again, thank you. Okay, so there it is, episode 1. Next up is episode 2. I'm going to go right into episode 2 and then episode 3 right after that. So yeah, man, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for checking that out.